What size meat do you need to put in this little thing?
5 1/4 inches wide.
That's what she said.
No thicker than 1 1/4.
That's what she said.
No idea.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode here on the No Idea YouTube channel. And today we are trying out the Weston Jerky Slicer.
So you and I love jerky, especially at deer hunting season. It's kind of a little tradition of ours. You know, we got the big meat slicer. We did that for a while for the whole meat or whole muscle jerky. That's just big and clunky and annoying. A lot of parts to wash. Slicing it by hand is just really annoying and takes a long time. So this is supposed to be super fast. Couple cranks, 1 to 2 pound piece of meat that's sliced in a jerky slice. It's perfect 1/4 inch pieces ready to go for you. So.
All right, so let's go. Let's unbox this thing. Are you ready? Look at this thing of beauty. It fits perfect on our table. This is the Weston Jerky Slicer. So Adam, talk us through what do we got here? We got a handle. We got this thing goes around. What are we going?
Really, really simple. There's a bunch of tiny little blades inside. You put the meat in through here. You crank it clockwise and your jerky comes out sliced beautifully down there for whole muscle jerky.
We got some meat. We're going to try this thing out for the very first time. You went and got a steak. I have 2 of my venison roast from last year's deer that we're going to put through this thing. And we are going to make some jerky because we are heading up to deer camp this week. So we are excited to try this out. Let's see how it goes.
Give it a whirl. So turn clockwise. Says it just pulls the meat right through. I shouldn't have to shove it in.
Look at that.
And it just comes right out.
Jeez.
It did work.
That
Look
did.
at that.
Look at that.
Perfectly sliced. The slices come out about 1/4 of an inch thick. That's kind of ideal for jerky making, apparently.
Boom. Now, one thing we're learning is you can't, you're going to struggle if the meat is too thick, right? So you got to make sure.
We tried to put one through that was a little bit thicker, and it didn't go.
Oh, that caught. That's going to be a good one. Look at that. That was a nice one.
Oh.
There you go.
There we go.
Look at that. It came through like that, but it just falls off. This
That's pretty sweet.
is so
Gonna save a lot of time. A heck of a lot better than doing the
shave,
deli slicer.
because then you have to cut. Because then you have to cut again to get it like this.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome.
So far, so good. We're focusing on how this slices meat does not reflect necessarily how we make jerky. So the one thing you're gonna see with a lot of the venison, if we put this through here and this like little chunk here, that's gonna break off as it goes through into much smaller pieces. So you wanna try to get as big of muscle as possible when you're putting through it.
Perfect. Look at that.
One thing we do know when you're making any type of meat, so this one you can kind of see is a little scraggly as you put it through. You want to crank it for me? Just crank it clockwise, nice and smooth. One thing we know about venison fat is venison fat tends to be a little more bitter. Mm-hmm. You know, beef and pork tends to be a little saltier, a little more buttery, but venison is not like that. So you try to trim away a lot of the big stuff, but you also don't want to butcher it. So here's an example. This is a piece of muscle that came through that's a little bit divided. The muscle isn't necessarily whole, and you're going to break off into pieces, stringy pieces like that as you go. Not horrible. It's just it doesn't cook as even as a whole.
Filet.
See, freaking sweet. Like it does good work. So again, if you compare earlier, we were doing nice big equal cuts, and this is what you're going to get from that versus if you're putting in kind of divided or separated muscle, you're going to get stringier pieces. So you want that a good big solid muscle piece. One of the things I'm seeing as we cut through this venison, this was just kind of a roast that was picked out of your freezer. You can kind of see here, that's a lot of fat in there. This is not cutting through the fat very well. which it isn't supposed to. You're supposed to use, when you're making jerky, you're supposed to use some pretty lean
lean cuts
of meat. So this looks like some more, I don't know, Hannibal Lecter type of stuff. Silence of the lambs. My recommendation is going to be just get the biggest, most solid piece of meat without any dividing in it. This piece of meat that's all kind of, it's a couple of pieces of muscle.
One solid muscle versus...
Yeah, correct.
All right, so Adam's going to take this home. He's going to get it all prepped, ready, put it in his dehydrator at home so it's all ready to go at deer camp. Now, he already did some. Adam, show us. Here's the finished product right here.
This was another venison roast, so it's a little bit thinner. Yeah, it turned out well. I go 160. This took a little bit longer. The one thing I did notice was we used to slice it at about an 1/8 inch thick. At a quarter, it's going to take all of 6 hours to really get this complete and where you want to have it done. But overall, it turned out well.
Perfect.
I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, I got to tell you, that made it really, really easy to do. Now the question is cleanup. So it's easy to slice the jerky or slice the meat. What about cleanup? What do you do?
It has these two little combs in here that just keeps kind of the meat pushed down and separated off the blades. Those come out. The handle screw comes out. That comes out. These two screws right here on the side come out, and then this pops off. You clean that piece separately. The blades come out right here. You clean these separately, and then the base portion you clean separately. Okay. That's really easy. Obviously, you got to be careful around these. These are very, very sharp. Toothbrush, or even just, soap and water, but then with your sprayer from your hose on your kitchen sink will easily get all that stuff out, as long as you do it when everything is wet.
Yep. And it basically has a C-clamp at the bottom that attaches to a table. And so you just tighten it down and it sits right on your table. This thing was slick.
Yeah, it'll make life a lot easier.
So we purchased this with our own money. This wasn't given to us to do a review.
We were looking at the LEM powered one that you attach onto our motorized meat grinder. That was like $130, $140 more than this was. And I think for the amount of jerky that we do, don't spend the $140 more. This is more than enough if you're just a novice or just a recreational jerky maker like we are, where you make jerky a handful times a year and maybe just put 10 to 15 pounds of jerky through it a year. Yep. This is more than enough.
All right, so there it is, the Weston Jerky Slicer. We threw together about 5 pounds, and I can guarantee you with our kids, his girls and my kids, we're going to fly through this in a matter of a day probably.
Yeah,
so
easily.
We're going to be making some more. Again, thank you for watching. And if you haven't already subscribed, we'd love for you to subscribe. And to all of you who have already subscribed, thank you so much, because it means so much to us that you've subscribed to our channel. All right, okay.
Good talk.
See you out there.
No, right.